Sorry?
So you like the weather outside?
The weather can stay where it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Looks funny.
The Friedrich Rebbe was once sitting by Fabrengen in what was then Leningrad, Petersburg, Russia. And the weather was rainy, very nasty. And it started to thunder. And the people were sitting around. Rebbe Fabrengen were not like Fabrengen in 770. It was just a table and people sat around. People sitting around suggested about making a bracha on the thunder, and lightning. I said, oh, it's thundering. So the Rebbe said, this is a thunder? Oh, nobody did anything. Right? Then came a thunder that shook the walls. A thunder. This is a thunder? Finally, there came a thunder that was unquestionably a thunder. This is a thunder. Then made a bracha.
This is the Rebbe, no?
The Friedrich Rebbe.
Oh, Friedrich.
To make a bracha, you are mispoiled from Hashem's actions. You have to really be mispoiled.
So you shouldn't make a bracha this time when you hear
You
thunder?
shouldn't make a bracha. When you're sitting with the Rebbe, then you can wait till the Rebbe makes a bracha. All right. We are on the bottom of page 165. Right? We'll start a couple of lines above where we ended up last time for continuity purposes. It's 5 lines from the bottom. The line begins with the word vihine. We explained that there are 2 types of rotzin, and we discussed, to the extent that we did, the union of rotzin. How rotzin is the strength of the soul itself. In other words, it's not an emotion. It is a conclusion of the soul, and almost to the point where it does not need a reason, because it's greater than reason. And in this we said that there are 2 types of rotzin. There's rotzin shapi haseichel, and rotzin that is higher than seichel. And yet, in that rotzin also there is a tam komus. There is a concealed reason. In other words, there is something behind the rotzin that causes the rotzin. But the rotzin itself, ultimately, once it's revealed, is a nefesh force that is stronger than rotzin, stronger than reason. I'm sorry. It's a conclusion. It's a decision that's stronger than reason. So he explains like this: V'hinei b'harotzein sha'api haseichel. You have that at the end of the line. The rotzin al pi haseichel, the rotzin that was created through seichel. Harei. So then we have the following experience: Be'eshem mizboinen b'seichlei, during the time that he is reflecting in his seichel, v'nei lad eletz leho rotzein, and at that time the rotzin is created. Then horotzin hu b'cheisha kutshuka. Then the rotzin is in full desire. He has a full excitement in this rotzin. He has a desire for it. Ubehispoilus g'doila, in great excitement. V'yesh loy chayus pozeh. And he has a chayus in this. The meaning of heshlech chayus pozeh, it's difficult to kind of translate exactly what chayus refers to. But we'll try. The word chayus means life. I mean, the expression is, like we say in Yiddish or in English, he lives in it. Does it mean a person lives in something? This thing is so meaningful to him that his very life itself is involved. It's not an action that he does. His very life is totally involved in it. I mean, he lives in it. Rotzoin is, as we said, is a power of the soul. So while the Rotzoin is supported with this seichel, then it is a full-fledged Rotzoin that he actually lives in it. He has a chayas in it. In other words, his feeling it is almost beyond the reason. It is like a personal excitement and a personal dedication to the singing. Aval, however, b'meshech hasman, over a period of time, k'shemistaleg haseichel mizeh, when the seichel is removed from it, v'nishkach etzloi, and it is forgotten. The seichel is forgotten because seichel, we explained. I don't know how many of you remember. The one principle of seichel is that this is something that we call it's a discovered knowledge. It's not an inherent knowledge. Do you all understand the terminology? There's something that a person knows without ever learning about it. This is what's called inherent knowledge. Seichel means something that I found out, which means I my own don't know it, but I found it out. Something that is a discovered, a learned knowledge is you're aware of it at the time when you are learning it. But once you stop actively pursuing that knowledge, you're no longer aware of it. Something that you're aware on a constant basis.
It leaves your conscious thought.
It leaves your conscious thought, and then you're no longer aware of it. You can always bring it back, but you're no longer aware of it. And once you're not aware of it, then v'nishar ha'rotzin levade. Then remains the rotzin by itself, levad. The rotzin, on the other hand, this is an interesting phenomenon. The seichel created the rotzin. So you would think that the rotzin would be just as volatile. Volatile means temporary. It can change. Just like the seichel can change, the rotzin can change, right? Because the seichel created the rotzin. So if the seichel you can be aware of it and not aware of it, then the rotzin also can go away. He says no, the rotzin remains. Huh? Rotzin without chayes, what we're going to explain. But the rotzin remains. We have to. This is also something very revealing of rotzin. How can the rotzin remain if the seichel is the one that created it? And the explanation is the seichel in fact created it. But the seichel did not create it from nothingness. The Seichel created it in terms of revealing it. But in fact, this is something which he has a personal affinity, personal relationship to. But he didn't know it. The Seichel had to reveal it. So it's called that the Seichel creates it. But once the Seichel creates it, then he has a personal relationship to it. And that's why the Seichel can be concealed and the Ratzin remains. Because Ratzin is more true than Seichel. More true.
You mean that it existed before the relationship and he's revealing it?
Right, the roots for it existed before. So the Ratzon remains, even though the Seichel is now removed. Harei, so then we can observe and see. Kam kishoisik bozeh, although he continues to engage in this inyan that he wants. Umedaber, and he speaks, v'oise bozeh, and he acts and does everything needed to do it. Harei hu bli shum hispoilus, and yet it is without any excitement, or bli chayus, and without a living quality to it.
We discussed this all last year, right? This is all we're backtracking, right?
I'm backtracking a little bit to
Right.
reconnect.
I don't need to rewrite it.
You can rewrite it over here.
No.
It's like he doing the same, but now just without Rosen.
Without the Seichel.
And now because he has Rosen, but this Rosen is like not full. Because
The Ratzin,
it's not full. It's like he has Rosen, but he don't has like
the excitement.
reason to this Rosen excitement. And now when he doing it, he doing without vitality. Yeah?
Right. And yet he does it. What kind of Ratzin is it?
Is it a passive action? Passive, like not like almost, I don't know if it's absent-minded, but
No, it's not absent-minded. He knows what he's doing.
is it a matter of fact where it's just,
And you could almost describe it as inertia. It's not inertia. Inertia is a physical phenomenon. This is a human phenomenon. So he knows what he is doing. But he already made that decision. He's already going in that direction. So he continues to go in that direction because this is his Rotzin, as we explained. Rotzin encompasses the whole person. So this person has not decided that this is what he's doing. So whether he was aware why or not doesn't change what his decision is. That's what he says here. Rag b'derech heskim levad. It's only b'derech heskim.
But Rosen make Heskin.
A heskim. What heskim means?
I know what's the meaning of it. He make Heskin to what?
A heskim means a personal decision. It's personal agreement, a personal commitment to do something. So he made that commitment, but he's no longer involved in it. Right. V'hainu. He explains how this is the Rotzin Bipnei, being that shekvar huskam v'huchlat etzloi lirtzois boseh, since that he already agreed and he was decided that he should want this, harehu roitze ato gamkein beheskim chozok. So he continues to want it, beheskim chazak, with a strong decision. Or beheskim zeh hu oises hadover. As a result of this heskim, of this decision, he continues to do it. Avolein bozeh chayus v'hispoilus. However, there isn't in it chayus, excitement. Ach haheskim hu betoikiv. But the heskim itself is in full force. The heskim is not a tacit agreement or a halfway agreement. It's a full force. Vehu, and it is shekefi oifen toike v'achlotas harotzen, the same manner as there was the strength of the hachlotas harotzen, of the decision of the rotzen, be'ei shehoya bozeh haseicha v'hadas, at the time when he had in this rotzen the seichel, when he was aware of the seichel and das, kein hu hateikev, the very same strength is be'achar kach, afterwards be'horotz, in the rotzen shebederach heskim levat. In the rotzen that remains only bederach heskim, remains with the same strength. And the yin of strength here means that he does not doubt, he does not deviate, he does not shake. He goes for it in full strength, because this was his personal decision. V'gam yochel liyois, it's even possible, sheyiyah betoikef yoiser. It's even possible that this remaining rotzoin should be with greater strength than the rotzen, than the way the rotzen was when the seichel was active. Okay, this is the new thing. How can it be with greater strength? Shaharei, since that mitzad haseichel, because of the seichel, yochel liyos bozeh eis a shinui. There is possible to occur in this some changes. Seichel, huh?
Akor? You say akor?
Well, what?
Yeah, occur.
Occur, oh, happen.
Akor?
Occur, right. Some change can take place because of the seichel. Because seichel can change. One can see something one way, and then it can change and see it a different way. Therefore, if a person has a decision and the seichel is still active, so even though he made a decision, as long as he's aware of the seichel that brought about that decision, it is still possible that in the seichel he will recognize something that he didn't recognize before, and he will change his decision. And therefore, his decision is still not with full strength to the point where he is no longer considering it. The seichel is always considering it, even though he has come to a conclusion. Because the seichel is always active and looking and trying to understand.
So you have to say until the seichel is there, person can change his mind every single moment.
Right.
So
See, the seichel works like this. Let's say you understand something, and you understood it fully. You have no more questions. And you're very excited about the seichel, you're reflecting on it. As long as you're reflecting in this seichel, you're trying to understand it even better. Right? That's what reflecting. Trying to understand it even better. As long as you're trying to understand it even better, that whole principle that you're trying to understand it means that that there is some aspect of it that is not fully understood. You're still trying to understand it. If you're still trying to understand it, it means that it remains open to change. So, as long as the seichel is active, it is in continuous seichel understand and doesn't understand once and for all. It understands all the time. Rotzain is once I want it, this becomes my rotzain. Seichel is not like that. Seichel is active all the time.
So there's even better if Seichel is gone. For fulfillment, this target where we're going to, this even better that Seichel is gone. There's no.
In the sense of toikiv, of the strength, yes, but in the sense of being involved and having a chayas and his spoilers and excitement, no. You understand? There is.
Well, yeah, but with seichel, you can every moment you can forget about your idea and make another idea. For instance,
you can't forget about the idea. You can change it a little bit. I mean, the seichel is a seichel. It isn't that you're going to backtrack everything. But seichel per se is a volatile thing. I want to illustrate this with a mashal. But it's a mashal that we have to try to understand where the mashal is. Let's say you're driving on the street and you have to go in a certain direction. And there are streets along, as you're traveling, you can turn off at every corner. You can make a turn any corner you want. And you are driving in a certain direction, and you're not making these turns. Every turn that you're not taking is a decision not to take the turn. Right? So therefore, the fact that you're continuing on the same road is a decision to continue on the same road. So that original decision that puts you on the road isn't a conclusive with full force that you're never going to turn off. You're continuing on the road and you continue to make a decision not to turn off. But let's say you get onto a highway and there is no place to turn. The only place to turn is down the cliff. So there, your seichel is you're no longer making a decision. Am I going in that direction or not going in that direction? I'm going in that direction, period. So here, your decision is conclusive. You're no longer aware that you made the decision to go in this direction. Excuse me? You put the foot on the goes and it goes, right? But as long as it's the seichel, so even though the decision is there, but the decision is not what's called betoikif. It's not the power of decision. On the other hand, it is still true that you need to go in this direction and need to go to this place. So you are going to make this, you're going this way. But in terms of the decision, there isn't that, what's called that conclusive strength of decision. Okay? So the seichel could be some change. Ubeharotzein shebedera heskim levad, but once the rotzen is at the level of bedera heskim levad, only the conclusion and the decision, lo yiyeh bazeh shinui. Lo yiyeh bazeh shinui. There's not going to be any change. There's nothing that can possibly change it. Okay. So this is a suggestion that the Rebbe says that Yochel Liyes, it's possible to say that the Rotzain, the Toikev Rotzain, the strength of the Rotzain is even stronger after the Seichel vanishes than while the Seichel is active. Okay, now watch this. V'eich sheyiyeh. V'eich sheyiyeh means however this may be. In other words, whether this is true. Eich sheyiyeh, however this may be. Meaning, whether the Rotzain that remains alone without Seichel is in fact stronger than the previous Rotzain, or it's not, whichever way that is, Harimuvan still understood Shehorotzin Shebederech Heskim, that this Rotzain that there is a level of Heskim, Yesh Bozet Toikev Kmei Behadas. It has Toikev, it has the strength like the strength of Das that we discussed earlier. Kihu bo mehahachloto, because this Rotzoin comes from the decision Shalidei Hadas, that we reach through the process of Das.
Heskim means once the seichel has been removed from the Ratzon, correct?
Right. Ve'alkein, and thus yesh toikev godel behaheskim. There is great strength in this heskim, in this agreeing, because the rotzin itself was actually the result of hachlota of das. Sorry? Heskim. The word heskim means to agree. Sometimes you agree with someone else. Sometimes you agree within yourself. This is my personal agreeing. That's my personal decision. It's called a heskim. Yeah. Just as this phenomenon is true in the Rotzin that is based on Seichel, that we said that there are two stages in the Rotzin. There is a stage in the Rotzin when it is fully imbued with Seichel, and there's a stage in the Rotzin where the Seichel has lifted, and now it remains only the Rotzin. Kach hu gam, the same is also true behorotzin shalomaylo mehaseichel, in the rotzin that is above seichel, which we discussed previously. The be'esh and yisayre behorotzin, that when he was first aroused with this rotzin, mipnei hatam v'ho'oinek bozeh, because of the tam and oine, because of the delight and the pleasure that he has in it, hoyo horotzein mibchinas pnimius horotzein. Then this rotzein was at the level of pnimius, meaning bechayus v'oine. He was excited about it. He had a lot of personal delight from this rotzein. But afterwards, when this oineg is no longer felt, then harotzin hu b'bchinas chitzonius. Then the rotzin is in a chitzonius, in an external manner. Shein bozeh tam v'oine kol kach. where he does not have the oineg, the light anymore. He only has the remainder, the rots, the chitzonis.
Because this Ratzon was never connected to the Sefer to begin with, so then it's also, it's like the aspect of Ratzon that, which comes from the Sefer, which is above the Midas. Once the Sefer removes from it, so although there's no Chayas in it, it's more, it's got, seemingly it's more taken, and it's no chance of a Shina. So can you say something about the Ratzon, which is above Sefer, that it never had Sefer in it to begin with, and therefore from the very beginning, it's got that aspect of take up, and it's got that aspect of it's not volatile, it's not subject to change, it's set inside of him.
Right. See, tam oineg hanefesh cannot change, like seichel can change, right? But oineg hanefesh can change in a different way. It can change from wanting right now this or this, having an oineg in one thing or having an oineg in another thing. Not that he no longer has oineg in the previous thing, but now his oineg is vested in something else.
One track.
No, it could be multi-track, right? He wants this, then he wants this. This is what he says. It's true that tam v'oineg cannot change because this is oineg hanefesh, but it can be active or not active.
The same oineg.
The same oineg, or it can be active in a different way, in a different oineg.
So the Ratzon that Shabbat is stable, so it can actually change. It can want something in one moment, and then it can actually, if the stable is still involved, it can no longer want this. It can decide that this thing is no longer good for the person. But the Eineg, the Ratzon which comes from Eineg, it's only that its desire will change to something else, but if something should rekindle that desire, so it would be exactly the point I left off.
Right.
But does it have the additional strength that the Ratzon that comes from Seichel has once the Seichel is removed from it? I mean, because this Seichel, this Ratzon was never connected to a Seichel to begin with.
It was connected to an oineg. Being that it's connected to an oineg, there is the similar inyam. I said oineg cannot change, but oineg can be and not be. Therefore, there is the aspect in the rotzin also that it is, so to speak, an active rotzin rather than a conclusive rotzin. Whereas when the rotzin is completely by itself, then it is exclusively rotzin.
So how does this factor in? You said before, like, for example, the idea that someone has a Ratzon for a bias. That a person will never be happy unless he's got a bias, right?
Oh, a bias.
Right? So, but seemingly when you say that, you seem to say that it doesn't change. That a person's entire life, unless he fulfills this Ratzon, it will always be there. But now you're saying that it can subside, it can go away, it can switch. So how do you resolve the two? This idea that a person without a house will never feel settled, will never be happy. He'll always feel like he's wanted and whatnot.
Well, I'll explain to you. I'll talk about that. But first of all, we didn't say that the rotzin can change. We said that the seichel behind the rotzin can change, and the oina can be removed, but the rotzin remains because it's a heskin.
The Ratzon which comes from above the seichel. It doesn't come from the seichel, right?
No, it comes from the oina.
It comes from Einik. So is it possible that this Ratzon should come? It's possible that this Ratzon can come and go, right? Is it a constant thing, or is it something that?
No, the rotzin is a heskin which is constant.
Even the one which comes from which is
Right, that's what it said. Remains a chitzonius. Chitzonius means I'm no longer evaluating. I'm no longer judging. I have this. This is what it is.
But the Ratzon, which was Ma'al Seichel, he was never evaluating.
He was evaluating on the basis of
how
oining. Right.
So when the Tam and the Einig goes, is that similar to the highest going with the Seichel in
Right.
the other Ratzon?
Right. Right.
But the Ratzon still stays, just like in the other Ratzon when the Seichel leaves, that Ratzon stays. So in this Ratzon, when the Tam and the Einig leaves, the Ratzon still stays.
Right. That's what it says. But it remains the Chitzonius.
So you can change in the fact that the Oinig can change, but the Rotzim will stay.
The Rotzen will stay.
But there won't be ever a question.
That's right. Now, as far as the Rotzen Labayas that you asked, the Rotzen Labayas is what's called a Rotzen Atzmi, which means that we don't need the Seichel to explain it. It doesn't come without a Seichel. This is something which is in effect an expression of a person's presence in the world. But we have to understand, in order for a person to be aware and to experience that Rotzin, one has to be oriented, has to relate, has to recognize that he has a place in the world. Like we spoke yesterday, everyone has a count, an independent count is a real presence. If his presence is if a person is only aware of what bothers him, I'm hungry or I'm cold, he won't be aware of this source. This Rotzen he becomes aware when he is aware of his presence in the world way beyond his immediate needs, just as a human being. Not because it satisfies some need. Like I mentioned, and I don't know if I mentioned to you, I remember I had a guest in the house one time, many years ago. He was a mathematician and very cut and dry person. So he said he does not understand the purpose of buying books. Any book I want, I can go to the library, take it out, read it, and put it back. What do I need to buy books? So now this is a logical argument. If you consider a book only from the perspective of what use you can get out of it. But if you understand the value of possession, the meaning of a person having a home and having valuable things, then this is completely short-changing. It's missing the whole point. So in order to be aware of this erotzen, you have to become aware of a real essence of a person. And this is what Torah helps us to understand. Chassidus helps us to open up and to recognize where is the real person. Not just practically speaking, but in reality.
Is the Ratzon to possess things, it's It's not mitzad seichel.
No. It is mitzad seichel. But it's not at the same. It's not on par with wanting a house. But it's nevertheless a significant thing. If I have a house, I want to have sforim in it, not just the sforim that I need for the moment, but just that it should be.
Could you say that ultimately Ratzain is the entire process that we've spoken about before, that Ratzain is the ultimate goal of it? Meaning that everything that precedes it, all the steps of Das, Levina and Das, and the different levels in Das and Mechlach and everything, it's only to facilitate that a human being should be able to come to a Ratzain, and that this Ratzain should guide his life to something meaningful, meaning to use the seichel just for academic pursuit is a waste of it, because the idea is in order to create a Ratzain, yeah?
That is really quite true. That is really quite true. Although, like we're learning here, the Ratzin is much richer when you have the seichel with it. And that is definitely significant. But this is illustrated. What you said is illustrated by a simple illustration, when a person understands exactly what he's supposed to do, but he does not have the willpower, the personal power to go and do it. Like we discussed the other day, if you're lying in bed and you decided, oh, I'm supposed to get up. Supposed to get up is not going to get you up. It's the power of Rotzin that gets you up. The seichel is not going to get you up. The seichel only tells you it's good. But the Rotzin is the one that tells you, if it's good, do it. That's Rotzin. Seichel is not going to make it happen. You have to have the willpower, the human quality to say, if it's good, then I'm going to do it. It's two separate things. All right. How do we feel about the Maimon so far? We're coming along. Huh? Awesome. David, what do you feel? Huh? That's good, yeah. Because this becomes a little bit even more, but more, more deep.
What do you mean he's amsus again?
I'm sorry?
He's amsus?
His amtus, which comes from the word emes.
Substantiated, yes?
Substantiated.
Substantiated means like it has substance?
No. Proven. It is something which he recognizes. This is absolutely true. His samtus means it's true beyond the need for proof. This is, huh?
It's got grounds. It has grounds.
No. Grounds means that he has a proof.
Beyond the need.
Beyond the need for proof. This is a personal recognition of truth. That now I don't need to prove it anymore.
With me.
I don't need to prove it. Why? Like, I don't need to prove to myself that you are Shnei. Why? Because it's emes.
You,
Somebody asked me, how do you know that it's Shnei? I don't.
part of your dad.
It's I'm recognizing this is it. That's mean Samtus. There are inyonim, in Efesh and Okus, that we know at the level of Hisamtus that this is just the truth. And once we learn it, we know that this is the truth, and this is, even though we can't come to it through rationale and explanations, when we go a little deeper, we say, oh, I don't need any rationale, I need explanations, this is it. What's called Hisamtus. Yes, David.
I know you explained it a couple times, but I don't understand how the Russian can be stronger when the Seikel's not there.
Oh,
I didn't get it.
well,
I know you explained.
Don't blame yourself, because the Rebbe himself says that this is not necessarily conclusive. He says, V'eich sheyiyeh. V'eich sheyiyeh means, in other words, it's possible, v'yochel yiyeh, right? He says, it's possible, it's conceivable that it should be like this. V'eich sheyiyeh, however this may be, whether this is in fact so or not, even though we have a logical argument to say that this would be so, but we don't need necessarily to conclude that this is how it is. And what is the logical argument on it? Okay, so now this is what we're doing. What is the logical argument to say that perhaps the Rotzoin that has remained after the Seichel has the aspect of strength even more than when the Seichel was behind it? It is that while the Seichel was behind it, even though I had made my decision and I know what I want, but I'm aware why I made that decision. Right? This awareness that why I made the decision is constantly being re-evaluated. Because Seichel is constantly re-evaluating itself. Re-examining. That's the property of Seichel. And since that I'm re-evaluating, therefore that means that my Rotzen is not in full force. Full force means that there is nothing in its way at all. So while the Seichel is still active, the Rotzen itself is being re-evaluated. Whereas when the Seichel is no longer active, it's no longer being re-evaluated. Like I explained, when you're traveling in the city, even though you made a decision and you know where you're going, nevertheless, you make another decision not to turn up every time. So that's a re-evaluation. So therefore, your decision to go all the way up is not 100% conclusive. 99.9. Whereas when there are no turn-offs, then it's 100%. Let me perhaps give you even a better illustration of this, along the line that we're saying, so we understand the subtleties of this. Not even on the basis of re-evaluation, like you can turn off the road. Re-evaluation, reconsidering. Not even on that basis, even more subtle than this. Let's say you're driving on a highway, and on the highway it says the highway is going north, and you know you need to go north. A few miles later it says going north. So you were saying, oh, they're going north, I want to go north. A few miles later it says again, this is going north. So every time that it tells you again that it's going north, what happens in your mind? I'm doing the right thing. Right? I'm doing the right thing. Even though you made a decision when you got onto the highway that you're doing the right thing. And yet, now again, it makes you feel good. Oh, I'm doing the right thing. What does that tell you? That your decision was fluttering, right? Had a little flutter, had a little give. It wasn't solid. You need. Huh? It's not in full force, right? Huh? Oh, I'm going north. Good. Oh, I'm going north. Good. You made a decision. What do you have to go? That's how it is. As long as the seichel works, every time that shows a little weakness in the rods.
Even more than one time to see north, and you keep being excited.
And you keep being excited about it.
This all comes from taking das, right?
Right.
It says here, once he has such a das, the strength can come into his wrestling, and he can have this taken.
Right.
So, how is it that when it says his seichel is removed, it means he's removing the taken and das as well?
He's moving the whole seichel and the das. But the rotzin remains. Because the rotzin is really a greater koyach, a more powerful koyach than das even. Das is still seichel. Das knows how come you make a decision. Rotzin is the decision itself. Rotzin is where the power, the human power comes in. This is mine, this is mine, this is who I am. This is who I am is beyond reason.
Does he have to involve, to have a highest in it then? Should a person try to re-involve the taken das? No, at a certain point?
Yes. Yes. It's two different things. Yes, of course, one has to have chayes in what he does, not just do it. But in terms of toike varotzin, you're talking about exclusively about toike varotzin. Surely, to have excitement and chayes is very important.
Six translated with highest vitalistic energy.
Okay,
Vitalizing
and
energy.
what does that mean?
Like the energy that you get from this thing gives you vitality and life with you.
Well, the point that he's saying he has chayus in this, chayus bozeh. Yeah.
From this you get.
No, bozeh means in what he's doing, not from this, not mizeh.
So what do you mean?
So I'm asking what. So how do you translate chayus?
I thought
We can always apply words, but if you want to understand the content,
I do.
we have to delve into this and explain, at least on a elementary level. Chayus means that I live. Living means that this encompasses in my whole person. It takes over. It takes in. Right. I don't do it just with my hand. I don't do it externally. Just to be yotzei, that's to satisfy my obligation. I do it with my entire full person, vitality, my whole vitality. With everything. I put everything I have into it. That's meant chayes.
How do you translate it?
The way I translate, not translate, explain it is personal involvement.
Personal involvement. He lives in.
All right, let's just start the next sieve. I expect and I hope that we'll chazer, and one of these days, after you will have chazer sieve beis, we'll take off a day to give you a chance to teach me what you learned, like we did in the previous one. Okay?
When's this?
When you guys are ready, either Monday or next Wednesday. We're not going to have a class.
If Monday is not the general class?
Maybe, I don't know. Whatever Abluski will say. Could be, because Tuesday we're not going to have a general class. Maybe it will be Monday. So in that case, it's going to be, maybe we should do it like the next time that we learn. And the week after Shavuos. Because we have enough time to go over it. V'hinei hadugma mibeis eifanei rotz. The example of the similar inyan that comes from our discussion of the two types of rotz. Yuvan will be understood. From this we will also understand Gam ba'avodas havaya ruchnis. In avodas Hashem, how the sinyan is beruchnis. V'hinei, we have to understand, the Rebbe says, Iker ho'avoida, the principle of avoida is Hu b'koyach horotze. The Iker, the principle, the focus of avoida is in the koyach horotze. Sheyiyeh retzoynoi v'cheftzoi b'lakus. That's what avoida is. Avoida is to bring out and to develop a rotzoin and chayfetz in the lakus. This is the Iker of avoida. In other words, you can do mitzvahs, that's also avodas Hashem. But avodah, we're talking about avodah pnimis, that which one works and affects on himself. The avodah consists in bringing out a rotzein and chayfetz in the lakus. That's what avodah is. That's Iker avodah. V'zehu v'yohavtu es havaya lekecho. This is what the mitzvah of Kriya Shema is. V'yohavtu es havaya lekecho. What is v'yohavtu? What means you love Hashem? Shoyresh ahava hu. The root of the word ahava is ava. Ava is loshen rotzin. Ava comes from the word is another form, an expression of the word rotz, of the Indian rotz, to want. You have to means you should want. All right, here we have to stop.
Ahavto, you said?
V'ahavto,
Is from Abba?
Ava.
Abba.
What, does Abba have a specific translation or
To want.
you want?
Ahava or Ava? Ava to want. Ava.
I don't have that page. How do you spell Abba?
You know that Allah base.
Al-Basi?
Allah base.
Last year, you just said how to do it outside.
Oh, and you still did it outside?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I did.
Okay.
Mainly do it outside.
Okay.
I just wasn't
All right. Hmm?